ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
We've seen it in the movies, but now we have incredible detail of the lengths that China goes to track down dissidents in Australia and send them home. In many cases, the Chinese men and women who've been critical of the Chinese Communist Party have Australian residency and citizenship, but they still fear for their lives. Today, Echo Hoy on her Four Corners investigation and why more's not being done to stop China's intelligence agency from infiltrating our shores. I am Sam Hawley on Gadigal land in Sydney. This is ABC News Daily. Echo, you've been reporting on the Chinese government for a decade, but last August you got an email that was like nothing you had ever seen before.
That's right. In August last year, the ABC's investigation unit received this encrypted email.
Dear ABC, how interested are you in certain overseas activities of the Chinese government? I have worked for the Chinese government for a long time. ASIO knows me.
And we didn't know it at the time, but it was actually from a former Chinese spy who called Eric, who now living in Australia.
All right, so he's a former spy, spying for China, Eric, and he hands you over a trove of secret documents that he's been guarding for more than a decade.
Yes, and what he handed over us is really extraordinary. There are hundreds of secret documents, text messages, voice messages, photos, bank records. It's really a trove of information that we could then go on and investigate to further understand the scale of this global intelligence apparatus.
I believe the public has the right to know the secret world. There are some things I still believe, freedom and justice. So this thing gives me courage to make some different choice.
And it's the first time anyone from China's secret police has actually gone public. So it's really, really significant. And Eric evidently wants to expose China's global intelligence network. What does he tell you?
So first of all, he told me he was forced into working for this what he called the darkest department and the evil force within the Chinese government. He was a dissident himself when he was just a 22-year-old college student. And he joined a pro-democracy group at the time. And that made him a valuable asset for the Chinese secret police because they could use him to infiltrate groups and individuals they deemed as enemies of the state. So the police really threatened him with jail time and then offer him a way out.
I
opened the door and there were 4 people, 3 men and 1 woman. You could tell they were police from the way they carried themselves. They told me, get dressed and follow us. You know what you've done.
Okay, so the way out is becoming a spy, working for Chinese intelligence. And he does do that, right? He takes the way out and he does the job, Echo, for a pretty long time before he escapes to Australia. Tell me about that.
Yeah. In a way, he did a, fantastic job. As someone who comes from an anti-Chinese government background, he was later sent overseas to undertake higher stakes, higher risk missions overseas in Cambodia, in Thailand, and target people all around the world, including in Australia, in Canada. And that really, really meant that he take that offer and essentially betraying everything he believed in and become part of this murky world of the Chinese intelligence.
Okay, so he did end up working for the Chinese intelligence agency for 15 years, but then he had enough. He just didn't want to do it anymore, and he flees to Australia last year. And he goes to ASIO to tell his story.
Yeah, so he basically goes straight to ASIO after he landed in Australia, and he just wanted to tell them their story and offer them all the information he had. He believed this information is critical and is useful for them to know. And it's essentially the same reason why he's coming to us. He believed the public have the right to know what this darkest department, what this evil force has been up to on a global scale.
What does he tell ASIO that he was actually tasked to do? Does he give more detail on that?
He did say to me that he tell ASIO pretty much what he said to us, which is he was tasked to hunt down high-profile targets, that people they deem as enemy of the state, people that personally attacked the Chinese President Xi Jinping, to win their trust and then try to lure them to a Southeast Asia country, if not China. And then from there, they could kidnap them and bring them back to China.
Wow, okay. So some of these people, of course, are living in Australia. Tell me about Edwin Yin.
Yeah, so we know Edwin is a controversial character and he has been charged with fraud in China. And an Australian court has also ordered him to repay $700,000 over an alleged foreign exchange scam. But we do also know that Edwin was targeted because of his political activism, because he personally attacked Chinese President Xi Jinping and his family on YouTube videos that he posts basically on a daily basis. He pretty much is a man on the run.
I don't dare to stay in one place. I borrowed a friend's camper van. I drive and stop in towns within an hour and a half of Melbourne, like a guerrilla.
We have some difficulty to find him at the very beginning because he's constantly hiding, changing location. And he is a man, pretty much a broken man who cannot live a normal life here anymore. And he had to live separately from his kids, from his former partner, to protect them from the long hands and long arms of the Chinese intelligence.
Around our home, there were different cars, different Chinese faces who appeared on routes that we travelled. When I went out, I was followed. Even while sleeping at night, there'd be footsteps outside. I'd grab a knife and rush outside, but they'd be gone.
So Edwin's obviously really concerned about moving around, about his safety. And he also, Echo, told you about how he was assaulted while he was in Melbourne by who he suspects were actually Chinese agents.
There were two men who cornered me at this entrance. The taller man came up to me and punched me 3 times. I held off 2 of the punches with my elbows, and the third one hit my nose.
Right, okay, so Eric is what? Looking into Edwin. He's been charged by the Chinese government to spy on him, has he?
Yeah, so he has been tasked to try to lure him to Cambodia or Laos. I just have to clarify, he didn't take up that task, but we do know that the approaches to Edwin in Australia, on Australian soil, the operation has been ongoing because we have confirmed during our investigation that he has remained a target of the CCP. And just last year, the Australian Federal Police has executed a sensitive search warrant in Sydney in a raid connected to a Chinese espionage operation in Australia. And Edwin's name was among the victims on the operation listed on the search warrant.
Okay, so basically Edwin is living in Australia. He was a vocal online critic of Xi Jinping, the president of China, and he's under Chinese surveillance while he's living here.
That's right. And pretty much we're talking about illegal operation on our soil targeting Australian residents. And he's not the only one here. We have also uncovered since 2014, there's actually 14 Australian residents that has been returned to China. And these returns, we believe, are not declared to the Australian authorities. And in 2019, particularly, a woman was returned by 2 Chinese police officers who came to Australia to repatriate her. And that repatriation is, as we know, without the permission of the Australian authorities.
Yeah, so these are Australian residents. They have protection here, just to clarify. And China is managing to get them back to China, even though presumably they don't want to go.
That's right. I believe they're being blackmailed, they're being framed. These people are, alleged to have done some economic crimes, but that's what China alleged. And it's very difficult for us to distinguish what is fact, what is just really framing by the Chinese government.
And you spoke to the FBI's former China chief, Holden Triplett. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so Holden Triplett is the former China chief, and as part of his job that he deal with the NPS on a daily basis while he was in Beijing. And he was really concerned about all this expansion of China's intelligence networks and operations on foreign soil.
NPS comes, says we're police, we're doing anti-corruption, a bunch of criminals in your country, let us clean them up, let us take them. That sounds like a really great idea. And by allowing that to happen, we allow them to get a foothold in the United States, Australia, and other places. And they've built from that foothold. And now they have a much stronger apparatus that can reach out and touch more and more people.
Tell me then, Echo, why has the Australian government allowed these repatriations to actually happen?
Well, Australian government is actually at a very, difficult position. The AFP, for example, have an MOU, an understanding and cooperation paper with the NPS, the very same agent who Eric worked for. But then they are also a law enforcement agent, so they do need to cooperate on some crimes, especially like anti-trafficking, anti-drug smuggling, that type of operation. And we understand that there's a need for them to cooperate. But we do see there's also a need to try to be more careful of some of the things that the NPF has said of economic crimes. And some of these operations, we do ask Australian authority maybe should be more vocal against this operation instead of just let them happen without permission.
All right, so Echo, are people like Edwin or dissidents, Chinese dissidents in Australia, they might have residency and they might have citizenship, but are they really safe here?
Well, I think this is a good question also we should ask the Australian government. I think it begs some very tough questions about our national security, whether it's under threat. And we really have to have a very hard look at whether we have, as the Western government, whether we have dropped the ball on China's transnational repression. Have we listened to the Chinese community? Have we heard their plight? And have we reached out to them to reassure them that the authority is on their side to protect them?
Echo Hoy is an investigative reporter at the ABC. You can catch her Four Corners report on ABC iView. The Australian Federal Police says it will never endorse or facilitate a foreign agency to come to Australia to intimidate or force foreign nationals to return home. An Australian government spokesperson said defending against malicious foreign interference was a top priority. The Chinese Embassy and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs did not respond to a request for comment. This episode was produced by Bridget Fitzgerald and Nell Whitehead. Audio production by Sam Dunn. Our supervising producer is David Cody. I'm Sam Hawley. ABC News Daily will be back again tonight at around 8 o'clock with a special episode in our feed on the federal budget and what it means for the economy and the cost of living. Thanks for listening.